They said it so casually that it took a second to land. Let's get rid of the useless people in this family. You're first. Lucas laughed as he said it, the sound sharp and careless, like he was tossing a joke across the table instead of a verdict. His chair scraped loudly as he stood, elbow clipping his glass and sending it tipping over. Red wine spilled across the white tablecloth, spreading fast, soaking into fabric I'd helped pick out years ago. No one rushed to clean it. My parents laughed. Not awkward laughter, not nervous laughter, comfortable laughter, the kind that meant agreement. All you're good for is your money, my mother added, waving her hand at me like she was brushing away a fly. Honestly, the laughter settled back into the room like it belonged there. Plates clinked. Someone asked for more bread. Dinner continued. I sat perfectly still, my fork hovering just above my plate. I don't remember what we were eating. I remember how quiet everything inside me became, like a switch had been flipped. My name echoed in my head, detached from the body sitting in the chair. My name is Calla Whitmore. I am the eldest daughter, the fixer, the quiet solution to everyone else's problems. In our family, love was never free. It was billed monthly, and I was always the one paying. We were seated around the long dining table in my parents' house, the one with the reclaimed wood surface and custom lighting I'd helped finance after my father's temporary setback. Every chair was occupied. Every voice was accounted for, except the one place where gratitude should have been. That chair was always empty. Lutz had always been the golden child, loud, reckless, magnetic, in the way people who never face consequences tend to be. His confidence was praised. His failures were forgiven before they even fully happened. I was the contrast, reliable, invisible, useful. Don't act shocked, my father added, chuckling as he cut into his food. You know he's right. I did know. I also knew exactly how many transfers I'd approved without hesitation. Rent payments, legal fees, emergency loans labeled temporary that quietly became permanent. They called it family support. I called a conditioning. Lucas leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, eyes bright with something that looked like excitement. You'd be nothing without us, he said. You forget that. Something inside me finally went quiet. No anger, no hurt, just clarity. I set my fork down carefully, aligning it with the edge of the plate the way I always did when I was done. The movement felt ceremonial, even if no one noticed. Okay, I said. My mother frowned, her smile faltering. Okay, what? I stood, slipped my coat over my shoulders, and felt lighter than I had in years. As I reached the front door, my phone vibrated in my pocket. An alert I'd scheduled months ago, back when I still believed loyalty mattered. If you've demonstrated it long enough. I glanced at the screen and smiled. Actually, I said without turning back, my hand resting on the doorknob. You're right. The room stilled. Let's see who's useless. Behind me, silence crashed into the space where laughter had been seconds earlier. I didn't wait for it to recover. I opened the door and stepped out into the cold night air. By the time I reached my car, my hands were steady. That scared me more than anger ever had. I didn't always start out calm. Years ago, I fought for scraps of approval like everyone else. Straight A's, full scholarships, a job that paid well enough to help out without making a fuss. Helping out became a reflex before I even realized it was happening. When Lucas failed, I'd fixed it. When my parents panicked, I wired money. Silence became my currency. Reliability became my personality. They liked me best when I didn't need anything. Lucas used to joke that I was the family's emergency fund. My mother laughed every time. My father called it being practical. None of them noticed how my life quietly shrank around their needs. Missed vacations, postponed relationships, a savings account that emptied itself whenever Lucas had a new idea that couldn't fail this time. That night, driving home, memories stacked themselves neatly instead of hurting. Patterns are easier to see when you stop hoping they'll change. At a red light, my phone buzzed again. Not a reminder this time. Confirmation. Everything I'd quietly put in place was finally active for the first time. I didn't feel like I was leaving my family. I felt like I was letting them stand on their own. And that was when the real pressure began. The first call came the next morning. It wasn't gentle. Lucas never did gentle. 3 voicemails before 9 a.m., each one louder than the last. each one skipping past concern and landing straight in accusation. By the third message, his voice was sharp enough to cut. "What did you do?" he demanded. "Call me back now." My mother followed with a text a few minutes later. "Stop being dramatic, Cullis." I didn't get it, dressed, drank my coffee, slowly, standing at the kitchen counter instead of rushing out the door like I used to. I noticed things I normally ignored, the way the light hit the wall, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the fact that my chest felt open instead of tight. Went to work. I sat through meetings, answered emails, took notes, smiled at coworkers. There was a strange distance to everything, like my name belonged to someone else and I was just borrowing it for the day. Every vibration of my phone felt less urgent than the last. By noon, the tone changed. Lucas showed up at my office unannounced, pacing the lobby like he owned the place. I could see him through the glass wall, running a hand through his hair, jaw clenched. Confidence had always come naturally to him. Panic did not suit him. He spotted me the moment I stepped outside. "What did you do?" he hissed, grabbing my arm before I could react. I pulled away calmly. I stopped. "Stop what?" His voice cracked on the last word. "Fixing things you break." His face reddened. "You can't just pull support. Dad's counting on you." That word landed heavy. Counting. Like I was a balance sheet, a guarantee, a safety net that didn't get to move. "You'll regret this," he said, lowering his voice. "We're family." I almost laughed. Instead, I watched him storm back through the revolving doors, already dialing his phone, already searching for someone else to absorb the impact. That evening, my father called. No greeting, no hesitation. "Transfer the money back." Now, I looked at the framed photo on my desk, me, younger, smiling too hard, standing between them like a bridge no one remembered crossing. "No," I said. The silence on the line felt brittle. "You think you're teaching us a lesson?" he finally asked. I hung up before he finished. Behind my calm, something irreversible had begun. The humiliation came 2 days later, and it came with witnesses. My mother hosted a family luncheon, one of those carefully staged affairs meant to remind everyone who belonged and who didn't. I was invited last, by text, like an afterthought that had to be acknowledged for appearances. I went anyway, not to reconcile, to observe. Halfway through dessert, my father cleared his throat and stood, glass raised. "We need to address something," he announced, eyes locking on me. The room quieted. "Calla has decided to abandon this family." Murmurs rippled through the table, heads turned, forks paused. Midwhere Lucas didn't miss his cue. "She cut us off," he said loudly. "No warning, no explanation. After everything we did for her." A few people laughed. Someone clapped, unsure why. My mother sighed. Theatrically, we raised her better than this. I felt it then. Not pain, not embarrassment. Clarity. I was being rewritten in real time. The story was changing and I was being cast as the villain. Years of quiet support erased with a few sentences spoken, confidently enough to sound true. I reached into my bag and placed my phone on the table. "If we're sharing stories," I said, my voice steady, "let's share the whole one." I tapped the screen. Transaction histories, dates, amounts, years of silent rescues lined up in neat rows, rent payments, legal fees, emergency transfers labeled temporary, none of them temporary. The laughter died. Lucas stared at the screen like it was written in a language he didn't recognize. My father's glass trembled in his hand. I leaned forward. "You didn't raise me," I said softly. "You built me." And that's when I saw it. Fear. I left before anyone could recover enough to argue. The air outside felt cleaner, like rain was coming. That night, I didn't sleep much. Not from pain. There was surprisingly little of that, but from focus. I replayed every pattern, every assumption they'd made about me. They believed my value was tied to access, to liquidity, to how quickly I could fix their messes. So I built my plan around subtraction. No explosions, no speeches, just precision. By morning I'd separated what was mine from what they treated as communal accounts I'd co-signed but never controlled. Automatic payments I'd set up years ago and forgotten. Guarantees that quietly made me responsible for risks I didn't choose. I called my attorney, then my banker, then a CPA who owed me a favor. Each call felt like closing a door gently instead of slamming it by afternoon. The plan was complete. Not to hurt them. To stop absorbing the consequences of their choices. I opened my calendar and circled one date in red. That was when I decided how this would end. Execution was quieter than I expected. I didn't announce anything. I let systems do the talking. Automatic transfers stopped. Co-signed accounts reverted. Notifications went out. Polite, impersonal, irreversible. By noon, Lucas's credit card declined at a cafe. By 3, my father's temporary loan triggered. A review. My phone lit up, heated, dimmed, lit up again. Lucas called first. It's not working, he said, his voice shaking. Fix it. I can't, I replied. It's not mine anymore. You did this on purpose. Yes, I said calmly. At 6 a.m. my parents showed up at my apartment. My mother cried. My father raged. I let them speak until the noise drained out of it. You're destroying this family, my father said. I opened the door wider. No, I replied. I'm leaving it. Lucas stood behind them, pale, finally understanding what dependency looks like from the inside. When they left, the hallway was silent. I locked the door. For the first time, my money stayed where it belonged. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It unraveled. At first, it was subtle. Lucas called less. When he did, the anger was gone, replaced by something unfamiliar and smaller. He asked questions instead of making demands, as if politeness might restore what entitlement no longer could. My parents stopped inviting me to gatherings they could no longer afford to host. The holidays came and went quietly, marked by silence instead of obligation. The house went on the market without announcement. I found the listing one night while scrolling aimlessly. The photos oddly intimate. The living room looked smaller without the illusion of permanence. The the table was staged differently now, less grand, like it was trying to convince strangers it had always been enough. My father finally asked to meet. We chose a cafe he used to love, one he'd once insisted on paying for, even when I'd offered. He arrived early. He looked older, smaller, the kind of tired that doesn't come from age, but from consequences finally catching up. You could have warned us, he said, staring into his coffee like it might offer him a different ending. I did, I replied. For years, he didn't argue. We didn't think you'd ever stop, he admitted. There it was, not remorse. Expectation. When Lucas arrived late, he didn't sit beside my father. He chose a chair across from me instead, hands folded like a student waiting for grades. His voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. I didn't know how much you did, he said. I believed him. That was the most painful part. I stood, paid for my drink only, and left them there. Not angry, not victorious, finished. The twist wasn't that they failed without me, it was that I thrived. The space they'd occupied in my life didn't fill with loneliness, it filled with possibility. I traveled, I slept better, I stopped bracing myself before checking my phone. My money grew. So did my sense of self, no longer shaped by what I could provide. Months later I ran into my mother at a bookstore. She looked startled, like she'd expected me to be smaller, broke, apologetic. Instead, I was laughing with a friend, holding a novel for a trip I'd finally booked without guilt. She watched me carefully, searching for cracks that weren't there. You seem fine, she said. I am, I answered. She waited. For more, for an offer, for a bridge back to old roles. I gave her none. What they lost wasn't money, it was certainty. The comfort of knowing someone else would absorb the consequences of their choices. The assurance that no matter how badly things went, I'd be there to smooth it over. That night I deleted the last shared document from my drive, a relic of a life built on obligation and quiet sacrifice. I wasn't useless. I was expensive, and they'd been spending me without permission. I turned off my phone, poured a glass of wine, and stood by the window as the city lights flickered on one by one, each light separate, independent. For the first time, so was I.